Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us this Friday here on the Noon News. I'm Samantha Sullivan, and joining us right now is Ed McIntosh, because the big talk is it's still really, really cold out.
That's right. A lot of very cold temperatures. Second time in a row now that Montana has had the daily coldest temperature in the nation. Check out 47 below. 3 different reports from north of Wolf Point, north of Williston, North Dakota, and then also Medicine Lake up in northwest Montana or northeastern Montana. Temperatures pretty widespread in the 20s, 30s below, and we did have some wind chills as well that were reported at over 50 degrees below zero. And while the cold was dominating the weather in the northeastern portion of the state, northwest Montana's had its own travel problems. There's US 2 around the Essex area outside of Glacier National Park, as snow and blowing snow will continue to be a problem here as we make it through the weekend. Hazardous travel will highlight the weather, even though we're going to see a brief hike in the temperatures. But that warm up, that slight warm up, is just making better snowmaking weather. Take a closer look at that and the rest of the weekend forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Ed. Well, rescue missions and homeless shelters around the state are making some extra room as the below zero temperatures force people to move indoors. In Great Falls, the rescue mission, which typically has a strict acceptance policy, is being a little more lenient in these freezing temperatures so long as people cooperate during their stay. It's the only overnight shelter in Great Falls. Rescue Mission Executive Director Jim Kaiser says they've seen an increase in just the past few days.
It does kind of spike sometimes, you know, but we're prepared for that. As they say, this is not our first rodeo, and it's not our first cold weather snap, and so we really know what to do, and we just really invite people in. You know, I don't want a person to freeze to death out there in their van or underneath the bridge or wherever they're at. We really want them to come indoors.
The Russian rescue mission accepts monetary donations as well as anything from blankets, non-perishable food, hygiene supplies, and clothes. In other news this afternoon, a memorial service will be held today for the Fort Smith woman who died in a crash in Bighorn County over the weekend. The woman has been identified as 41-year-old Michelle Walking Bear. Known for her accomplishments with the Indian National Finals Rodeo, the association issued a statement earlier this week recognizing Walking Bear as a tour champion, many-time INFR qualifier, and horse owner of the year. Walking Bear died Sunday when her vehicle went off Highway 313, rolled, and she was ejected. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Parents of children who attend a University of Montana's daycare are raising concerns over the levels of asbestos found in the building. Some saying the school didn't notify them fast enough. McGill Hall remains closed. Parents attended an informational meeting yesterday where hygienists said the health hazard is acceptable for conditions. However, parents say those levels weren't tested for children. They say the building should have been shut down immediately.
Proactive would have been shutting it down when you found out about it, or at least alerting parents of kids in the same building that an asbestos remediation is going on.
Yes. Okay.
It's a tough learning curve for all these kids. Your learning curve, your university's learning curve, is a tough lesson for all these children, faculty, students have been exposed to this. And bringing more people to minimize the risk is a disservice to everyone.
A university spokesperson said they've acted according to the data they received. On to the legislature, a bill allowing Montana microbrewery tap rooms to extend their hours to 10 p.m. died a quick death today. Without discussion, the House Business and Labor Committee voted 16-3 to kill the measure Friday morning. The committee had a hearing on House Bill 185 earlier this week. Montana craft brewers supported it, saying that allowing their tap rooms to remain open for additional 2 hours would help the booming industry just keep growing. But tavern and restaurant owners strongly opposed it. They said brewers are asking to create unfair competition for retail sales of alcohol because the brewers haven't had to pay for an expensive alcohol beverage license. The bill was sponsored by Democratic Representative Dave Fern of Whitefish. And a bill to prohibit Montana judges from suspending someone's driver's license for failure to pay court fines had its first hearing Friday at the Capitol. Judges and their lobbyists came out strongly against it. House Bill 217 is sponsored by Republican State Representative Casey Knutson of Malta. At Friday's hearing before the House Judiciary Committee, individual rights groups and some business groups supported it. They said people shouldn't be prevented from driving to work just because they're having trouble paying a fine or penalty. About 14,000 Montanans had their driver's license suspended in Montana just last year. Judges opposing the bill said license suspension may be one of the only tools they have to enforce payment of fines. But Knutson said most people are trying to pay their fines and that suspending their license isn't helping.
I'm not trying to take away the ability of the court to collect these fees from people who are able to pay. I'm simply trying to ensure that people who cannot pay don't have their driver's licenses suspended and therefore lose their ability to get to work, earn a living, and provide for their families because they missed a payment or are having trouble making ends meet.
The committee will vote later on the bill. Also at the Capitol, lawmakers got their first look at a bill to continue Medicaid expansion in Montana. Democratic State Representative Mary Cafaro of Helena is sponsoring House Bill 425. It would extend Medicaid expansion in its current form. The program provides government-funded health coverage to about 95,000 low-income adults in Montana, but it's set to expire in June. She says her bill's only significant changes to the program are more money for its workforce training program and obligating hospitals to pay about $15 million to help finance it. Republican State Representative Ed Buttrey of Great Falls is working on an alternative Medicaid bill that will likely include some restrictions on eligibility. When asked why majority Republicans at the legislature would accept her bill instead of Buttrey's, Cafaro said the success of the program speaks for itself.
When I get elected, I don't get elected to do this, put my finger in the air and see what is politically and acceptable in the legislature. What I get elected to do is represent people. That's what we need to do, is talk about the wildly successful program, the status quo that we have today, and really the question becomes, why wouldn't Republicans support what we have?
The federal government covers 90% of the program's cost, but the state must pick up the remainder. Elsewhere, the Montana Department of Agriculture will soon ask growers of hemp whether they want to form an advisory committee. The department held listening sessions with hemp growers and processors today in Helena and last week in Sydney. They overwhelmingly supported moving forward with an advisory committee. The department will now mail ballots to all licensed hemp producers in the state. An advisory committee would pool resources from growers and research for marketing. They would also provide input as the department develops its plan for a full commercial hemp program.
I think it's important for hemp because there's a lot of unanswered questions, and we need direction from the growers on where they want our hemp program to go. We really need grower input on what the Montana program will look like.
The federal government allowed Montana to begin a pilot program for hemp growing about 3 years ago. Last year, Congress removed more restrictions on hemp as part of the Farm Bill. The state plans to submit its updated plan for federal approval next month. Well, coming up here on the Noon News, sparks fly between the acting attorney general and lawmakers on Capitol Hill this afternoon. Those details when we come back. But first, Ed's back with a full look at the weekend forecast as temperatures are set to take another dip. We'll be right back.
You're watching MTN News with Samantha Sullivan. Storm Tracker weather with Ed McIntosh, and farm and ranch news from the Northern Ag Network. This is the Noon News on Q2, Montana's news leader.